Hey there everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports. Extremely excited to talk about the 2021 draft class today. A little bit of a refresher as we go into rookie extensions. Now, a bunch of players from the 2021 draft have already signed rookie extensions, including Cade Cunningham of the Detroit Pistons, Evan Mobley of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Franz Wagner of the Orlando Magic. Those are a few examples, there's been more, but there's a lot of players still left unextended going into the final year of their rookie deals, which puts not only a little bit of pressure on the organizations to try and figure out deals with those players, but it also puts pressure on those players to either perform this upcoming season or to get a deal done if they want that long-term security before this upcoming year, especially with how injuries can occur and completely derail or affect or alter a player's career. Guaranteed money is never a bad thing, even if it's a little bit of a discount. So keep that in mind throughout today's video. Also, if you guys do enjoy the content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it here with the rookie extension deadline. So the day that this is coming out is Friday. The rookie extension deadline is 6 p.m. Eastern time on Monday, October 21st. So we are about 72-ish hours away from the rookie extension deadline, which means if there's going to be deals done, they're going to come very, very soon, which is why I'm recording this video today. I've been wanting to get to it for a while now, and I finally prioritized it to make sure it gets out on the channel ahead of time, because this deadline is going to be really, really impactful. Also, a little bit of contract details for you that is important to note. The maximum for a rookie max extension with the current CBA, the current salary cap, is a maximum of 5 years, $224 million. So you're looking at near $250 million type players, near $250 million type deals, which is crazy money, honestly. It's absurd. But when you look at what the long-term ramifications could be for teams that don't sign players, well, there's 4 potential teams right now that I view as teams who could potentially work with max cap space this upcoming offseason. The Brooklyn Nets are the clear, obvious one. They don't even have to move any money. They don't have to clear up any money in order to work with max cap space. The Rockets, they would have to renounce some guys, but they do have a bunch of expiring contracts in Steven Adams, Jeff Green, Jae'Sean Tate as examples. They also have a couple of guys eligible for rookie max extensions who we'll talk about later in this video. The Wizards and Spurs, I don't exactly expect them to be a team that works with cap space this upcoming offseason, especially given their rebuilds and the way that they've been working through acquiring extra draft pick compensation and more assets to begin with. So not necessarily expecting the Wizards and Spurs to be big-time players in free agency, but the Brooklyn Nets, I think, will be a big-time player for sure when it's all said and done in free agency a year from now. So keep them in the back of your mind. We'll have a video talking about them at a later time. So let's jump now into some of those names to watch for over the next 72-ish hours. And remember, if they don't extend, that does put, again, a lot of pressure on both sides of the contract discussions. It puts a lot of pressure on the player to perform this year in order to get paid. This is the first big payday for a lot of these guys, obviously. Now, some of them very high draft picks. They've made good money so far, but a lot of them, maybe even outside of the lottery or at the back end of the lottery, they're making a lot of money compared to a normal human being, of course, but in the grand scheme of NBA money, they're not making a ton yet. So these extensions do mean a lot for these players. It gives them generational wealth. It gives them a real advantage for their children, their grandchildren, everything like that for the rest of their lives and their kids' lives and their grandkids' lives. So that's why sometimes players might take that guaranteed money as well. Our first example, I have these ranked by the least concerning or the least dramatic for me. And the Washington Wizards, Corey Kispert is a potential free agent next offseason. He averaged a pretty decent number of points last year on very good efficiencies, as you could guess, for someone who was such an elite shooter during his college days, and obviously that has translated extremely well in the NBA. One of the big reasons why I really liked him as a draft prospect, because I thought he was such a projectable prospect, a player who had just such functional use in an NBA offense. I think Corey Kispert in a lot of ways is an underrated player as well. I don't know if people really truly understand how gifted and dynamic of a transition player he is. Obviously, you think about the shooting and the advantage that plays in transition in 3-on-2, 2-on-1 opportunities, but also with him attacking the rim, playing downhill in transition. I think that's been a very heavily underrated aspect of his game. So when it comes to what an extension could look like, I think anywhere from the range of about 4 years, $42-48 million, all the way up to somewhere closer to maybe 4 years, $60 million. Now that 4 year, $60 million mark is a little bit more expensive, but I think with the expected growth in the cap over the next couple of years, especially when it's going to potentially be growing by 10%, you could definitely realistically reason $15 million a year for a Corey Kispert type player. It's a tradable contract. Now, I think one of the most important things to watch for, and Washington did this a year ago with Deni Avdija, who's now since then been traded. They also did it with Kyle Kuzma. Watch for a Corey Kispert deal to be a descending contract, where the first year of the contract is actually more expensive than the final years of the deal. And I think Washington has been very proactive in signing extensions, signing deals with descending money in order to prioritize long-term flexibility. It also puts your player in a pretty good mood. You give them more cash up front. Obviously, that's beneficial no matter what kind of job you're in, but for NBA players, the sheer volume of money that they're making, getting that money up front is sometimes better for them as well when it comes to interest and everything that they can do with their money, right? So for Washington specifically, I think if they do get something done with Corey Kispert, it will likely be a descending contract. Anywhere from $12 to $15 million is kind of the range I'm expecting right now. If Kispert's agent gets better than that, that would be an impressive deal for them, in my opinion. Maybe the far north number would be like $17-18 million. And Washington could realistically look at that, again, if it's a descending contract, as a tradable asset, giving them more flexibility with a bigger number to trade later. And a player like Kispert's going to hold at least some value around the league because of his shooting touch and the value that shooting just plays in today's NBA. Every single team needs it. Every single team pretty much wants more of it. And Kispert would be tradable regardless. We saw the Wizards kind of act similarly with Deni Avdija, who obviously has a very different game than Kispert, more on-ball talent and a better defender as well. But I think for Kispert, whether Washington wants to trade him or keep him long-term, a descending contract makes sense either way for them, as they're a team that will potentially look to operate with cap space in a couple of years as well. So I think Kispert, an interesting rookie extension to monitor, but not one that's going to be too dramatic here. I think the Wizards and Kispert will get something done either this year or through the restricted free agency pathway a year from now. Going on to the Houston Rockets, and I think some people would expect this to be way more dramatic, and I think a lot of ESPN and a lot of the other mainstream media sources don't really understand what's going on with the Houston Rockets. I actually have a video up on the channel covering this already, talking about what I think is up the Houston Rockets sleeve. What is Rafael Stone doing? It really all has to do with the cap holds, very similar to what Philadelphia did last year, not extending Tyrese Maxey when they did. They could have extended him early on a rookie max extension. Tyrese Maxey was patient, waited, got paid this offseason, and allowed Philadelphia to also go sign Paul George and make other improvements on the roster as well, signing guys like Andre Drummond, for example, Caleb Martin, a few other examples out there as well. So I think Houston has similar plans up their sleeve, and they're really at an advantageous spot here because of Alperen Sengun's cap hold. It is extremely low, very similar. Tyrese Maxey was a pick in the 20s. Alperen Sengun was picked outside of the lottery. Their cap holds are very, very low, especially compared to the rookie extension that I think Alperen Sengun has earned. He's a star player. He's a budding star, and I know some people will take offense to that. Some people will say, wait, what? Trust me, he's a budding star. He's an offensive engine, an offensive generator out of low post play. As a roll man working into the short roll, he's got tremendous touch. He's a post-up scoring option. He's one of the best passing big men already in the league, and he's extremely young. The sky is really the limit for Alperen Sengun, and whenever he does sign his extension with the Rockets, whether it be before the deadline this year, which it won't be, it'll be going into next offseason, just like Tyrese Maxey did, it will be for max money. Now, Jalen Green, that's the big question here. Will Jalen Green commend max money? And if he doesn't, does he even stay with the Houston Rockets? And again, I talked about other teams with potential max cap space. The Brooklyn Nets are one of them. And remember, thinking back to Sean Marks' days early in his Brooklyn Nets tenure as GM and lead executive there for Brooklyn, he really was undergoing the renovation of the team post Paul Pierce, post Kevin Garnett, and he was really aggressive with offer sheets. Offered offer sheets to guys like Otto Porter Jr., Tyler Johnson, Allen Crabbe, and what he effectively did was really hamstring a bunch of teams. Washington matched the Otto Porter Jr. max money deal that ultimately really hurt the Wizards in the long run. The Miami Heat matched the Tyler Johnson offer sheet, hurt them in the long run. The Portland Trailblazers matched the Allen Crabbe offer sheet and then later salary dumped him to Brooklyn afterward. And the Nets were able to coop an asset up in that deal as well. So Brooklyn and Sean Marks specifically have been very predatory in the past, offering big-time offer sheets. And with max cap space, could Jalen Green be the type of player that Brooklyn goes after to exert pressure on an up-and-coming team like the Houston Rockets? I would not put that past Brooklyn at all. I would not put that past Sean Marks. But I think Houston, again, with their long-term plans, long-term goals, they're not going to extend Jalen Green presently. They're going to allow him to play this season. And I think the one thing Houston is really hoping for from both of these guys, they want to see them both play together extremely well, and they want to see both of them take steps forward. It's not that Houston doesn't want to pay these two players. They want to be 100% sure on Jalen Green. That's why they haven't extended him yet. And for Alperen Sengun, it's a money thing. They're waiting. They're using his cap hold to their advantage. Don't sound the alarms quite yet. Very likely these two guys just stay in Houston. If any one of them leave, it will likely be Jalen Green, either via trade or via an offer sheet from a team like Brooklyn. We'll see what happens. But again, I don't think there's a lot of drama here right now, even though most of ESPN and other mainstream media would tell you that. Going on to the Orlando Magic, and Jalen Suggs, hyped up as a winning player from his time at Gonzaga, and that has translated extremely well to the NBA. My comps for him pre-draft were of the essence of a Drew Holiday type player. Now that comp does get thrown out there way too frequently, way too often, but I think this last year we really saw Jalen Suggs step into that type of player, into that type of role. And with some of the other players, including his teammate Franz Wagner, getting rookie max extensions, why hasn't Jalen Suggs signed one yet? I think the biggest reason for that is I think Orlando, first of all, they were really prioritizing going out into the market and upgrading their current existing roster. They did that with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I think the Orlando Magic are going to be really, really good this season. And I think one thing for Orlando, just a little bit of insurance almost, if they don't sign an extension with Jalen Suggs going into this year, it's just further data collection. Will Jalen Suggs continue to shoot the ball at such a good clip? The first couple years of his career really could not shoot the basketball. And that was something, if you go back to my pre-draft concerns on Jalen Suggs, it was the outside perimeter shot. How often can he rely on that shot? How good of a catch-and-shoot player can he be? And how good of an off-the-dribble shooter can he be as a guard? And I think if we go to this past playoffs, one of Orlando's biggest problems was guard creation, guard scoring, guard catch-and-shoot play. And I think if Orlando does hesitate to give Jalen Suggs an offer sheet or an offer here, a real like max offer, a rookie max offer, it's because they are hesitant and worried a little bit about the long-term shooting. It's not that they're saying Jalen Suggs can't be a good shooter. What I think they are, I think first of all, they're very optimistic he will be, but I think they wouldn't be mad at waiting another year and really seeing the data play out. How well does he shoot the basketball? How effective is he alongside a guy like KCP? This, again, prioritizes their flexibility going forward. Orlando not extending Jalen Suggs would not be, again, sounding any alarms to me. It's just further data collection, and the more data you can have before you make a big-time, large money decision for your organization, the better. So if Orlando doesn't extend Jalen Suggs, again, there's no harm, no foul here. Again, he's a player I could see Brooklyn going after aggressively, though, so wait and see on that. But I think Orlando's in a spot here where if they don't extend Jalen Suggs here before the season, it's not the end of the world. Going on to the Brooklyn Nets, we've already talked about them at length. They have their own restricted free agent who has a very low cap hold, part of why Brooklyn's going to have so much money next offseason. And he is going to score the basketball a ton. Last year, he put up over 22 points per game, playing alongside Mikal Bridges. Now, after the Mikal Bridges trade, it is very easy to assume that Jordi Fernandez's offense, Cam Thomas will be the 1A scoring option night in and night out. And if you told me he averages 26, 27, 28, 29, maybe even 30 points per game this upcoming season, I would not think that's outlandish at all. He's going to have the field goal attempts, and he's got the scoring prowess to do it. If you go back to his time at LSU, he was one of the most dynamic scorers in the entire nation with the ball in his hands, playing for Will Wade alongside Trendon Watford. Part of that LSU Tigers team that was really, really fun to watch, and honestly went a long ways in the SEC that year. Ultimately, their run stopped, I believe, against Alabama in March Madness, but LSU was really, really good, and the reason they were really good is they had such a proficient scorer like Cam Thomas. So when it comes to what his number could look like, what his salary could look like, I think Brooklyn, this is one of the tougher questions here, because if Cam Thomas is scoring 27, 28 points per game and doing it rather efficiently, if he holds similar splits to what he did a year ago, you're looking at a player that on paper should be a $35, $40 million player, right? That's a lot of scoring, and that's pretty efficient offense. So people are going to maybe be confused about why I think he's more of a $20 million player, maybe a $22 million player. Again, you have to take in mind the CBA growth here and the overall cap jumps we're going to see over the next couple of years. $20 million right now is like $25 million 3 years from now. Maybe even more, honestly. It might be like $28 million 3 years from now. So paying Cam Thomas on a long-term, like 4-year, $88 million extension, that sounds like a lot of money for a player who I think, honestly, some of us might say would be best in a sixth-man role. I'm not necessarily saying that. I think there's a lot of ways where if Brooklyn had better pieces around him, better lineup construction, and a better overall roster, maybe Cam Thomas in the starting lineup could work and be effective. But regardless, I think realistically anywhere from $20 to $25 million a year, maybe similar to an Anthony Simons deal that he signed with Portland a couple of years ago. I'm trying to think of a couple of other examples. Emmanuel Quickley, I think, is like kind of the outlier, right, with what he just signed with Toronto, 5 years, $175 million. That would be like a dream outcome here for Cam Thomas, I believe. So anywhere from 4 years, 80 to 4 years, 110 is probably the realm we're going to see. Jordan Poole's another example of a player who, with kind of a dynamic scoring guard, with maybe not a lot of playmaking feel, then the Warriors regretted that, right? They traded him away very, very quickly after a GM change. So Brooklyn, I think, is going to be an interesting case study here, not only with how they look to use cap space a year from now, but also how this Cam Thomas experiment goes and how it ends up working out in the realm of getting a contract done. I would be shocked if he signs an extension prior to the season. Moving on to the Atlanta Hawks, and Jalen Johnson is one of the better young players in the entire NBA, has really taken a big step forward, improved his points per game by nearly 10 points last season, and was very, very effective in his role, not only as a scorer, but also an all-around player. His ability to make reads as a short role player, he's a tremendous fit with Trey Young in the front court, and I think one of the biggest positives of the John Collins trade for Atlanta, even though they almost got nothing for John Collins essentially, it allowed them to open up real heavy minutes for a player like Jalen Johnson, who I liked a lot in his draft class. I was really, really excited about him as a player. I was shocked he fell as low as he did in that draft. And obviously the rebounding numbers, the efficiency, the three-point shot took a big step forward as well. If all of those things hold true, and I could even see him blossoming further, turning into an 18, 19, 20 point per game player this year for Atlanta with DeJounte Murray out, I think the floor for a deal here for Jalen Johnson would be what Jaden McDaniels signed a year ago with the Minnesota Timberwolves, something in the realm of 5 years, $135 million. That's a lot of money. It is. It's a little bit south of $30 million a year. I think Minnesota was very happy to get that deal done with Jaden McDaniels. And I think for Jalen Johnson, you're looking at anywhere from 4 years, $125 million to 5 years, $165 million. Anywhere from about $30 to $35 million annually is what I would realistically expect for Jalen Johnson, and that is a very rich contract. And again, provides generational wealth to him. I could see this one getting done before the deadline. We'll see exactly what happens. Obviously, if you're Atlanta, waiting does put a little bit of a risk, because this is, again, a player that I think other teams would love to have. And not that Atlanta couldn't match an offer sheet, but it might drive the price up even a little bit further. So I think for Jalen Johnson, it's going to be a big year for him, not only on the court, but also off of it. I think he's going to get a ton of money. And I think it's pretty well deserved, especially with the year he just had last year, his fit with Trey Young, and just being a core cornerstone of the Atlanta Hawks organization going forward. He's going to get paid, and he's going to get paid handsomely. Now on to the New Orleans Pelicans, and this is where the drama really starts to set in a little bit with Trey Murphy, a player who, he's been vocal about wanting to be a starter in the NBA. So far, the Pelicans haven't afforded him that opportunity. They went out and made a big splash trading for DeJounte Murray on what I thought was a very good deal for them. They didn't give up that much in terms of draft compensation. They didn't give that much up in terms of actual young talent that had a real role on their roster. So I think for the Pelicans, I really liked the value that they got DeJounte Murray at, but it did complicate their lineup a little bit further, even with DeJounte, CJ, Herb Jones, obviously Trey Murphy, who we're talking about now, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson. I'm excited about the way that New Orleans is likely going to play this year. I think they're going to play fast, they're going to play fun, they're going to get out in transition, they're going to be very quick in the half court as well. I think the Pelicans are going to be such an interesting team to watch, and it's going to be a real testament to if small ball can work once again. We haven't seen small ball for a little while at a very high clip or a high rate. The Warriors obviously still play that way a bit, but thinking back to the 2019, 2018 Houston Rockets, we're going to get versions of that here with New Orleans. They don't have the MVP James Harden type player, but they have a lot of talent still and a lot of size, length, wing play. They have a lot of shooting, and depending on what happens here with Trey Murphy, if he does extend with New Orleans before the season, which I don't expect, it gives us a real insight on what's going to happen with Brandon Ingram, who is also a free agent in the 2025 offseason. So New Orleans, not only do they have to figure out this Trey Murphy dilemma, they're starting small forward. Brandon Ingram is also sitting there staring at free agency. So you might not have one wing looking ahead to the offseason. During the year, you might have two of them. Trey Murphy looking for his first time big payday. Brandon Ingram looking to secure the bag once again. And he's in his mid-20s yet. So both of these players have a lot of good years ahead of them. Brandon Ingram and Trey Murphy have both dealt with some extensive injury stuff that has kept them sidelined for certain stretches of their Pelicans careers. But I think for Trey Murphy especially, his ability to play off the catch, his growth as an on-ball playmaker, and that's, I think, one of the more underrated elements of his game and his development since being a Virginia Cavalier to where he is now today. His development as a pick and roll player, his ability to make reads in the pick and roll has really dramatically improved. Now, it's not like he's this high volume 20-25 pick and roll per game type of guy, but it's been a feasible form of offense for New Orleans. And I think with their zoom action that they're going to again lean into this year, we're going to see a really good season from Trey Murphy, and I think he's going to get a bag. Again, something similar to that Jaden McDaniels deal, probably a little bit north of that, just given how the cap continues to escalate and grow. So anywhere from about 5 years, $140 million, all the way up to maybe 5 years, $170 million. We'll see what happens, though, because if they wait on it, he could get a huge offer sheet. He could just sign for a ton of money next offseason. We'll see what happens with Trey Murphy, but I think he is one of the most compelling situations right now in the NBA, given the kind of polarity between him and Brandon Ingram in the long-term starting small forward spot for the New Orleans Pelicans. Now on to the Chicago Bulls, and again, this one is another fascinating situation here with Josh Giddey, who has yet to play a real NBA regular season game for the Bulls, which is why he will not sign an extension with the Bulls before the season. Now you might be saying, wait a minute, didn't they just trade Alex Caruso, one of their most valuable pieces, for him? How could they not just look to extend him right away? And it's because the market value for Josh Giddey right now is very, very low compared to what it realistically will be or should be. And how that's going to alter over this next season is super obvious, super evident. Last year was a pretty poor season for Josh Giddey, even though he set a career high in three-point percentage shooting, nearly 34% from three. Obviously, that doesn't outweigh or overlie some of the concerns about his continuous turning down of open jump shots and still getting sagged off of. We're talking predominantly wide open threes. Josh Giddey's role is going to change, though, from OKC playing off the ball more next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and a team that, even though the team context was really, really good there in OKC, a lot of surrounding talent, a lot of really good basketball being played, Josh Giddey's game is going to be best with the ball in his hands, and that's how he's going to find his success. He's going to have a rhythm playing in that style, and he's going to be able to really exert his playmaking feel. One of the most dangerous passers in the NBA, not only from a creativity standpoint, but he's also just willing to throw the dangerous passes, the ones that are high turnover risks. And because of that, you might say, well, that sounds like a bad thing. It's really not, because it puts a lot of pressure on defenses, because he has the passing vision and the actual passing talent to fit the ball into those tight windows. And if you're out of position just a little bit, he can weaponize his size as a functional tool to pass the basketball to a bunch of different places on the basketball court. I think he and Lonzo Ball, who I'm super happy is back, by the way, I think those two guys are going to be such a dynamic backcourt together because of Lonzo's ability to play off the catch offensively. These two guys are going to push the ball in transition very well. And if you told me by the end of the year that Josh Giddey averaged 19 points a game, 8 rebounds a night, and 8 assists per night, I wouldn't think that's crazy. Now, are the Bulls going to win 45, 50 games playing that way? No. But is Josh Giddey going to up his value? 100%. I think Josh Giddey is going to get a really big contract next offseason. It's not going to happen this year, but next offseason he's going to sign a huge deal to stay with the Chicago Bulls. Moving on now to the Golden State Warriors, our final team that we have to talk about. And they've got two players who are extremely fascinating in this situation. Moses Moody, who I could see signing something similar to what Josh Green signed most recently with the Dallas Mavericks. Now he has since then been traded, which is why I think Golden State would look at that deal as an example of what they would probably want to get Moses Moody on for a contract, something that is movable, something that could be used in the trade market. Somewhere around, 4 years, $48 million, 4 years, $40 million, maybe even a little bit upward of $50 million, like 55, 60-ish million dollars. I could see anywhere in that price range for Moses Moody, who, even though it's been in short stretches and smaller minutes than I think a lot of Warriors fans even want, I think they'd like to see him play more. He has proven himself to be an NBA caliber player, and obviously at his age, he's still relatively young. There's still more room for him to grow and blossom as a player if he ever is given that role. I'm not sure how many minutes he's going to play again this year for Steve Kerr, but I think a tradable contract is what Golden State would love to get him on. Anything around the mid-level exception, anywhere from $10 to $14, $15 million is what we're going to see Moses Moody sign for. I think a 4-year deal makes the most sense for him to give him that long-term financial security and guaranteed money. Jonathan Kuminga is the real wild card here. And the biggest thing, the Warriors, the reporting, especially around the Lowry Markkanen trade talks, and that's what I want to go back to here. Around the Lowry Markkanen trade talks, the Warriors were quote-unquote reluctant or unwilling to trade Brandon Podziemski. From my understanding of the situation, it feels like Jonathan Kuminga was the centerpiece, the main core piece of a Utah Jazz, Golden State Warriors trade discussion centered around Lowry Markkanen. Since then, Markkanen has signed an extension with the Utah Jazz. He cannot be traded this upcoming season, so it gives the Warriors a little bit of time here to figure out what they exactly want to do. And one of the big questions is, can the Warriors really win a lot of games playing Jonathan Kuminga alongside Steph Curry and Draymond Green? I think Kuminga is such a fascinating player. I was super high on him pre-draft coming out of G League Ignite. He was part of the initial G League Ignite process with Jalen Green. And I was really excited about him as a player, and I think at times we've seen those flashes. We've seen what I expected him to become for extended periods of time. Stretches where he averages 20, 22, 23 points per game for a couple of weeks consecutively, and he plays winning basketball in those stretches as well. The issue here is Golden State as a team context. Now, they did get better this offseason, I think, in some ways, getting Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton. They've improved their team a little bit, especially on the depth portion of their roster. So this is not to criticize Jonathan Kuminga, but I think one of the things Golden State is super apprehensive about is how much can they win? And I know that sounds like super obvious. That's what every team should be worried about. You have to think about the Warriors specifically. Mike Dunleavy, their new GM, he took over from Bob Myers. He was part of the organization before. The first thing Mike Dunleavy had to do after taking over as GM of the Warriors was trade Jordan Poole because of his rookie max extension, and how that really handcuffed and hurt the Warriors' long-term future. I think they're being super cautious here. They don't want to overextend and overpay Jonathan Kuminga. The potential's there. The talent's there. They really do like him. But I think they are very, very scared and cautious to offer him big long-term money based on how the Jordan Poole thing played out, based on some of the recent history, based on the amount of assets that they had to move to get off of Jordan Poole. There's just a little bit of concern there, and I think the Warriors realistically internally view Jonathan Kuminga as their huge trade chip. And if they're going to make a trade, Jonathan Kuminga is the piece that can go get them a player of Lauri Markkanen's caliber. He's the player that can be included in deals to really overhaul their team, get another star alongside Steph Curry in the twilight of his career if they want to do that. I just don't think Jonathan Kuminga is going to sign an extension with the Golden State Warriors before the season. I would be pretty surprised if he does. He's going to be worth a lot of money. He's going to get a lot of money a year from now. I think it just gives the Warriors a little bit of time to figure out what they want to do. It kind of maintains their window to maybe make a trade. And I think that's what the Warriors are really prioritizing right now. Make sure you guys comment down below in the comment section. Also, I have a brand new Substack. I've started writing on the NBA. I have one article out right now. I'm actually going to go write again right now after this video comes out. So make sure you guys go follow, go subscribe to the Substack. Link is in the description for that. I would really love to see you guys over there. It notifies me when I get a new free subscriber. There's also a paid option to support me if you want to. No pressure to do that though. Be sure to go check it out. At least subscribe for free. Would really love to have you guys be reading my work. I'm going to cover everything NBA all year long and NBA draft over there too. So not only will there be YouTube videos, there will also be Substack articles. Thanks guys so much for watching. Subscribe, leave a like on the video, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.